What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Vick Almighty, and today we're gonna end the year with going over my top 10 customs of all time. I've been doing customs and restorations for over 10 years, so narrowing it down to just 10 was not easy. I spent hours watching videos, went through a bunch of pictures to narrow it down. Let's start with my number 10. Number 10, Ralph Lauren Polo Air Jordan 4. I actually made these for a really good friend of mine and a co-worker here at Rejuvenator. His name's Akil. He's been with the company for over 10 years. A couple of years ago, he turned the big 47. His girl hit me up wanting to do a custom for him. Back in 1992, he had the original Stadium Plates jacket. He's always talked about it. When we were at New York SneakerCon in 2017, he picked up the re-release of that jacket. That's how I knew that was his favorite piece of all time. So I took full inspiration from that piece and I applied it onto the shoes. When it comes to that jacket, there's some really sick elements and the main colors are red, blue, and white. So my job was to find a sneaker that had those colors. The problem was there wasn't too many Air Jordan 4s with the red, blue, and white. So what I ended up doing is buying two pairs of Jordan 4s and combining them into one. I bought the 2017 Motorsport 4s and the 2020 Fire Red 4s. Basically both sneakers had the red, blue, black, and white. I just had to combine them together. For this project, I really wanted to challenge myself, do something I've never done before. A lot of work, a lot of money went into this pair. Overall, this is one of my favorite customs that I've done for a few different reasons. The painted details, laser engraving, but I would say my favorite touch are the tongue tags. With all that being said, there was no way I was not gonna put the Polo Jordan 4s in my top 10. Big shout out to Kilo. On to number 9, the Kid Cudi Air Jordan 4s. Now this is another Jordan 4 that I also did in 2022, but this time I made it for Kid Cudi. That was a really sick experience. I used to listen to Kid Cudi all the time in high school. He came out to Arizona for a show. The Footprint Center hit me up wanting to do a custom for him. Once again, I had full creative freedom for this project. Knowing Kid Cudi and all his older album covers, I know he's heavy with the Galaxy gradients. That was a no-brainer to implement on the sneaker. The tricky part was to make it look good. I started with a pair of black military forests. I dipped them in pink grid dye to get a good base to work with. At the time, I was so stoked on how the shoe turned out just by using the dye. The air units, the netting, the suede, the liner took the color nicely. After that, it was all about making the shoe pop. I really wanted the sneaker to stand out, so I added a bunch of iridescent gradient tones all around the sneaker. The tricky part is blending all those colors to bring that Galaxy look alive. There's no wrong or right way to do a Galaxy paint job, but I spent hours bringing my vision to life. Since I knew Kid Cudi was gonna have these in his hands, I wanted to do something that he's never seen before. I added some LED lights into the air units. They were fully wearable. All you had to do was click the button and they'd be on and ready to go. Another detail that I added to those sneakers was laser engraving his logo on the side panel. That part is always sketchy to do on a sneaker, especially after I already invested so many hours into the custom. Luckily, it all worked out. I love all the details that I was able to incorporate into this custom. What made it extra special, that same night after the concert, he went on Twitter, posted the shoes on his feet, talking about how much he loved them. As a sneaker customizer, it's always really cool to see people's reactions after they see my work, especially when it's an artist that I grew up listening to. That's why that custom made this list. Number 8, Handmade 1985 Bread Jordan 1s. I made these back in 2021 with a good friend of mine named Max. At the time, around the pandemic, there was this kid named Max on Instagram and YouTube making these sneakers from scratch. It was completely groundbreaking. The measurements, the materials, and how it was made was exact to the 85 Jordan 1. Before that, no one was doing it. I had to bring him out to the studio. The thing is, I only gave us 3 days to do so. We worked all day and night to get these fully done. I felt so bad for Max. He was completely cooked all 3 nights. Now, when I say handmade, I mean it. When it comes to the upper, everything was cut and hand painted. The only thing that came as is was a sole. If you guys know anything about the 85 Jordan 1s, they're very different from the retros. The height, the shape, and the materials are very different. Thanks to Max, he had all that knowledge. Without him, this project would not have been possible. A couple of my favorite details is the wings logo. Typically, I use a stencil for this part, but in this case, we screen printed it on. We also went back with the tool to hit every single little piece of the wings logo to emboss it onto the leather. These are one of those customs that you have to see in person to really appreciate. I love having these on display. I did make these in my size so I can hopefully wear one day. Every single time I get an 85 Jordan 1 through the door, I like to compare it to these customs because these hold up every single time. Big shout out to my friend Max. To this day, all the information that he shared about 85 Jordan 1s and how to make sneakers from scratch, I still use. Let's move on to number 7. This was a crazy one. The laser engraved Jordan 3 low top. This project stands out to me the most because of the people involved, the time it took to create it, and the story behind it. Back in 2003, when Kobe Bryant wasn't signed to any brand, Nike made him a special one-of-one sneaker that a lot of people don't know about. There's only a handful of pictures in existence. The really cool thing about these is they were Jordan 3 low tops. Now this is a sneaker that I cannot recreate by myself. I had to assemble a dream team to make it possible. One of the guys that I brought in for this project was my graphic designer and good friend Julian. He was crucial to recreating some of the designs that we didn't have and manning the laser engraver. The second member of the dream team that I brought in was my other good friend Jake, aka Dave Customs. He has a ton of knowledge and experience when it comes to making shoes. The last person needed for this project was my other good friend Brian. He was the key to making this whole thing possible. A while back, Brian received the original filigree patterns from the man himself, Mark Smith, who designed and made the original Jordan 3 low for Kobe Bryant. This project presented a lot of obstacles throughout the entire thing, but at the end, we were able to recreate one of the rarest sneakers ever, but that wasn't even the coolest part. At the end of all that, I was able to sit down on a Zoom call with Mark Smith himself, pick his brain a little bit, and show him the sneaker that we recreated. This is hands down one of the most memorable projects that I've ever been a part of, because it wasn't just me, it was the production team and the dream team throughout the entire process with me. On to the next custom on my list. Almost making it to my top 5 is a recent one, the Deadpool and Wolverine Jordan 1 lows. My homie Jordan Diab and I cooked these up right before the movie came out. For this project, we loaded up the car with the production team, met up with Jordan in Las Vegas. He's one of the few guys that I talk to on a daily basis. We're always sharing knowledge with each other. For a while now, behind the scenes, he's been working on these one-piece uppers. I thought it was really cool, so we did that on these shoes. If you don't know what that means, the entire upper is one piece of leather that's wrapped in the back. All the stitching around the upper is to make it look like there's panels. A couple design elements that I really like about these customs. For one, is the gradient that goes from top to bottom, gives the color a nice pop. The swooshes on both sneakers are by far my favorite. We designed and made those from scratch on the spot. There's a couple options that we tried that didn't work out, but ultimately, this was the best option to go with, especially on the Deadpool shoe. It looks like his eyes on both sides. As a fan of these characters, you can really appreciate the details that went into these customs. I love how simple and clean these turned out. It was a blast hanging out with Jordan for a couple of days. Overall, I love having these on display. These are my size. Maybe one of these days, I'm gonna rock them. Now we're on to the top 5. Number 5, the Air Jordan 4 Air Force 1 Fusion. Nike in the past has done something similar to this, but not quite. They've used the Air Force 1 sole with the Jordan 4 upper. We did the opposite of that. In my opinion, this is a million times better than what they did. A few reasons why this is in my top 5 customs. It's the very first Fusion that I was ever a part of. It started my love for Frankenstein and Fusion sneakers. It also gave me the opportunity to work with my buddy A1 Restorations. He's a beast when it comes to restorations. He knows a thing or two about re-glues. He's one of the guys that taught me how to do a successful glue job. A couple challenges we faced when doing this custom. We had to cover up the original glue line from the Air Force 1 sole with this Jordan 4 sole. We also had to implement netting somewhere on the sneaker. The perfect place for it was the swoosh. The swoosh is made out of 3 parts, the black backing, the netting, and this leather trim to sew all 3 pieces together. I'm a big fan of the Fire Red 4 colorway, especially the 2006 version with the Mars Blackman logo on the back. I will put big money that Nike has this design sitting in the vault. I'm sure one day we're gonna see something similar to this. A cool story about this one, I posted this sneaker on Instagram on a clean white background with the text saying Air Force 1 just landed on Mars. It got a lot of traction. It started circulating all around the internet to the point where people really thought the shoe was gonna come out. More reason to believe that Nike one day is gonna release this. We're almost to my top 3. Coming to number 4 is my favorite one of 2024, the Chapter 1 books that I made for one of my favorite rappers of all time, Ice Cube. Once again, my good friends over at the Footprint Center hit me up when Ice Cube came in town to do a project for him. Now, I was super excited when I got the call to do a custom for Ice Cube. I've been listening to him for years, but when it came down to making a design for him, it was extremely hard. If you know him, his style is very minimal, black, white, with some paisley print. I know he wears Air Force 1 lows, Jordan 1 lows, but the thing is, I've done customs on those sneakers throughout the years. Ultimately, I took full inspiration from the black and white Air Force 1s that he wore in the movie Friday. I wanted to challenge myself, so I bought 2 pairs of the Haven Chapter 1 Bucks. I took both pairs apart to make one custom. As simple as the colorway was, there was a lot of work and details that went into the sneakers. For example, the back tie was made from scratch. I replaced the Chapter 1 text with Westside. On the opposite side, I threw up the Westside hand, inspired by Westside Connection. I wanted these customs to look as factory as possible. In order to make that happen, I had to fly to Las Vegas to meet up with my friend Jordan Diab. The biggest challenge was I had to have those customs done that same weekend, so I could only spend one day in Vegas with Jordan. Luckily, he's a pro. We got everything done. We used some beautiful caviar leather to make some brand new tongues and quarter panels. I came back home, finished sewing everything together, got the uppers onto the soles, and got them done just in time. The deadlines are usually pretty tight, but on this one, I was definitely pushing it. This is the first time I or anybody else has taken apart a pair of Chapter 1 books, 2 pieces, and put it back together with new parts and made it look factory. That's why it's my favorite custom of this year. Alright guys, we finally made it to my top 3 customs. Before I share with you my favorites, I want you to comment down below what you think my top 3 customs of all time are. Now let's get into it. Number 3, Stone Cold Steve Austin Air Jordan 1s. Now if it wasn't for the Ice Cube project being my favorite custom of this year, these would easily take the crown. I spent way too much time on these customs. I've been wanting to do a wrestling custom for years. I've been watching wrestling since I was a kid. I watched all those guys like The Undertaker, Triple H, The Rock, but ultimately I went with Stone Cold. He has just so much to work with. He has all the quotes, all the elements. Everything you could think of Stone Cold went into these sneakers. You got the Terminator Stone Cold skull on one side. On the opposite, you got the Austin 316 Rattlesnake. Beautiful chrome swooshes with skulls embossed all around them. Rattlesnake's tongue tags with Austin 316 on them. I also added some denim material for the insoles inspired by his jorts. On the back we got some stencil work, Stone Cold and Fear, along with a bunch of other details. I really love this custom. I even took him to SneakerCon with me to show him off because I was super proud of this one. As a sneaker customizer, this is what it's all about. Projects like these really allow me to dive into my creativity. There's no limits or expectations. From what I recall, I was supposed to only spend 2 days on this custom. I ended up spending 6 full days on them. I didn't want to skip out on any details. I wanted this custom to be absolutely perfect. I do want to wear these one day, but at the moment, they're beautiful on display. I'm already working on my next wrestling custom. The next one's going to be inspired by Eddie Guerrero. On to number 2, Killmonger cleats for Marshawn Lynch. If you guys been watching the channel for a while, you may remember these. Back in 2017, I made these customs for the man himself, Marshawn Lynch, aka Beast Mode. The story on this one goes, Steve, aka Mr. Resjuvenator, was talking to Marshawn Lynch's team. They wanted a custom for him to wear for the season opener against the Rams back when he was with the Oakland Raiders. Back then, it was a little tricky for me because I haven't worked on too many cleats. At the time, the movie Black Panther just came out. If you guys remember, there's a character in the movie named Killmonger. He was raised in Oakland, so right off the rip, there was a connection there with Marshawn Lynch because he's also from Oakland. So I took full inspiration from Killmonger's suit and applied it onto the sneaker. The textures and the materials on this shoe worked perfectly for what I was going for. We got the Killmonger leopard print throughout the entire texture mesh area, along with some gold accents on the swoosh, just like his suit. One of the coolest details about this custom are the teeth. At the time, 3D printing was relatively new. My old videographer, Lee, was also an industrial designer. So we logged in on the computer and designed these teeth from scratch. We sent them out to a guy to make these with his 3D printer. The thing is, it wasn't the best machine to use. The teeth came out really rough. They needed a lot of work. So me and Lee spent an entire day from morning till night laying down filler, sanding. It took about 10 different sessions to get them nice and smooth. Then I prepped them, laid down some paint, and got them to this point. Me and Lee were extremely happy once they were fully painted and done. We even designed them so they can lock in easily with the original lace holders. The teeth are by far my favorite details about this custom, but the overall story is what makes these my number 2. If you see right here, you got Marshawn Lynch's autograph. Once the custom was fully done, me and Steve got on a flight and went straight to Oakland. Once he saw these customs, he was completely blown away by the craftsmanship. The plan was for him to wear them for the season opener, but he loved them way too much. He didn't want to destroy them. So what he ended up doing was sending this shoe, gave it back, and the opposite shoe he put in his trophy room. Shout out to Beast Mode. Now without further ado, let's get on to number 1. At the end of the day, all my customs are my favorites, but looking back on this one and just remembering how much work I put into it and just how proud I felt once it was fully done, I'm gonna have to go with the Phoenix Suns City Edition 2022 Air Jordan 4. That custom to this day is my absolute favorite one, to the point where I want to make that custom all over again just to have it in display in my studio. That custom alone took 40 hours to create, not including all the brainstorming and conceptualizing I did for the design before I even touched the paintbrush on the sneaker. Prior to this custom in 2021, I did this massive 20-pair Air Force One custom for the entire team, including Booker. Every single shoe had hand-painted details, custom tongue tags, insoles, and laser engraving. That project is what got my foot in the door with the Suns. Fast forward to 2022, the Phoenix Suns released their brand new City Edition jerseys, honoring all 22 Native American tribes here in Arizona. It was a big deal at the time because no other sports team in Arizona has ever shown recognition to the Native community in that way. They brought me on to make 2 customs, one for Governor Lewis, who's the governor of all 22 tribes, and the second pair for the marketing director of the Suns. The mission was to put everything you saw on the jersey onto the sneaker in a tasteful way. Ultimately, every little detail and element on the jersey tells a story. There was nothing I could leave out on the sneakers. The step pattern stencil that I put on the uppers was crazy, took forever to line up nicely. Not only that, it had to be symmetrical with the opposite sneaker. For the midsoles, I added several perfect parallel lines throughout the entire thing. I also added arrowheads That midsole by far is my favorite midsole that I've ever painted. That also took forever. On top of all that, I also did custom tongue tags, insoles, laser engraving, and a custom display box. This one was by far the most intricate paint job I've ever done. Once the customs were all wrapped up, I took them to the Suns, delivered them. They absolutely loved them. They were blown away by all the little details. On the spot, they asked me to do a third pair for another guy on the team. You know I can't say no to the Suns, so I got on it right away. After I wrapped up the third pair, they posted them on Instagram. The whole world absolutely loved the sneakers. Everybody was commenting great things, but there's one person that stood out to me. This is the person that got me into basketball, my favorite player of all time, no other than Steve Nash. He commented on the post, "Need." That same night, the Suns marketing director texted me if there was a chance that I could make a fourth pair for Steve. There was no way I was gonna say no. Once it was all said and done, I was over 160 hours deep on just one project, but every single hour was worth it. This custom is my number one for several reasons, but it solidified my relationship with the Phoenix Suns and it put me on the map here in Arizona. Because of this project, I went on to do more customs with the Suns, like the dunks I made last year inspired by the City Edition El Valle jerseys that pay homage to the Chicano and Hispanic culture that I'm a part of. Working with the Phoenix Suns has been a childhood dream, and as a diehard fan, I'm looking forward to doing more projects with them. Alright guys, that's gonna bring us to an end on my top 10 customs of all time. Drop a comment down below on what you think should have been in my top 10. I look forward to reading them. I really appreciate you guys watching throughout the entire year. You can use promo code TOP10 to save 20% off your next order at rejuvenator.com, but act fast, it's only good for the first 25 orders. Now before I forget, for the month of January, we're giving away a pair of the Travis Scott Dark Mochas. All you have to do is comment down below your shoe size, like this video, and be subscribed to Rejuvenator. At the end of the month, we'll pick a winner. Hope all you guys have a great holiday. This is Vick Almighty. I'll see you guys next year. Peace.